Hey folks, my name is Mo Amir and this is VANCOLOUR, British Columbia's bona fide culture and politics TV talk show. I don't have to tell you that there is a lot going on, but tonight we're going to refocus on British Columbia's second most enduring thing to complain about, housing. Rain, by the way, is the first most enduring thing to complain about. Kudos to David Duchovny. Kyla Lee will explain your rights as a renter if your landlord wants to evict you. Plus, Steve Soretsky is here to explain how Vancouver is sowing the seeds for a new era of a housing supply shortage. But first, politicians, including the ones named Mark and Pierre, like to talk about affordable housing, but they don't really like to say that home prices must come down dramatically for homes to be affordable. Is that on purpose? Beaming in to break it down, the host of the Angry Mortgage podcast, the overly opinionated mortgage broker on social media, Ron Butler. Ron, I am such a big fan. What an honor. Thanks for being here.
Oh, the honor's mine. Thanks very much.
Now, this is television, so you can get angry, but you just have to mind your P's and Q's for me, okay?
I've been on TV. I cannot swear. It's hard. Pretty hard, but I cannot swear. That's for sure.
That might be news to people who've only seen you on YouTube, but I appreciate it nonetheless. For us comfortable homeowners, explain just how bad things have gotten for young people who want to buy a home today compared to, say, 25 years ago.
Well, it's a really simple statistic. 25 years ago, you could buy a home. A young couple could buy a home. And the price would very closely reflect between 2.5 and 3 times their income. And this was manageable. You could buy a home, have a down payment. Saving up a down payment wasn't impossible. You could buy a home. You still have money for stuff. Like you could still go out to dinner on Friday night. You could still afford to make a car payment. You could still live in a normal way, and you would be able to pay off your mortgage sometime within 25 years. It was paid off. And that was a good way to live. Now, today, the big change is in Ontario, Southern Ontario, where millions and millions of people live, and in Greater Vancouver, where a couple million people live, that ratio has now become, in Ontario, 9.5 times income, and in Vancouver, 12 times income for an ordinary couple of working people to be able to, that's the relationship of income to house price. So that, in a word, is unmanageable.
Absolutely. Now, at the root of the high cost of housing, is it a supply and demand problem? Because we see a lot of proposed solutions from federal parties revolving around building more supply or reducing taxes. They also like to talk about increasing wages to make housing more affordable. Is there anything wrong with that approach?
There's nothing wrong per se, but we have to dig into the details to make it understandable. So one of the big problems we have with housing in major urban areas is that municipalities, towns, and cities have decided to take massive chunks out of every new sale that takes place. So development fees in the city of Toronto since 2012 have actually increased 1,000%. I'm not kidding, 1,000%. There were municipalities in the Lower Mainland, like I think it was New Westminster, they bumped like 50% in just 1 year on development fees. So these are the fees that are charged theoretically to developers, but the reality is they're just passed on to the new home buyer. So in that crucial area of new construction that used to be a key buying area for young people, that's hopeless now because it's been taxed to infinity in terms of development fees. It adds like $190,000 to the cost of a townhouse. If people wonder why these houses are so expensive, there's reasons. And then finally, when we talk about supply has radically shifted in the big metropolises of Canada for the last, for the last 10 years particularly. And there's virtually no single family or low rise or even townhouse development. And 80% of development has shifted to the condo segment. And let's face it, the condo segment, some of those units are just way too small. And at some point, somebody's got to go in and ask the planning departments of these cities, why did you think it was a great idea to try to raise families in a 485 square foot unit. That also makes no sense. So there's been many, many policy decisions that have gone wrong.
Now, going back to something that you pointed out on Twitter in particular, you were talking about the federal policies being promoted or being proposed by Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, and you were saying that these leaders don't want to say that house prices must come down, and yet they always do talk about affordable housing. Can you explain that difference and what you mean by that?
Boy, that is a really crucial element of what's gone on in the housing market, particularly in British Columbia and Ontario in the last 25 years. And that is, the greedy, rapacious boomers, of which I am one, I am very much one, have seen this really incredible jump in their wealth based on simply buying a house at the right time. And the one thing that boomers don't want to do, two things they don't want to do. They generally don't like to leave their homes. They'll rattle around a couple will rattle around in 2,600 square foot home with 4 bedrooms and only really use 3 rooms of the house, but they never want to leave. So they'll just keep staying there. And most importantly, if you threaten the value that they've built up over time, this sort of magical good luck they had, they will vote you out. We've seen it time and time again in provincial elections and municipal elections. Do not touch the boomers' value of their home because they are extremely careful voters. Like for every person under the age of 35, a boomer will outvote them by about 2 to 1. In other words, the 35-year-olds may not show up to vote. The boomer always shows up to vote, and they will take their revenge on you if you ever try to take away any of the value of their home.
So you have this credible demographic that shows up to vote and has this entrenched interest of keeping home prices high. So then realistically speaking, do these political parties and policymakers even want to bring down home prices if they know that it's going to cost them politically?
Well, occasionally Pierre talks about the fact that young people have been shortchanged in Canada. You do get that commentary out of him. I mean, his voter coalition seems to be designed to be composed of some young people. But if you start to analyze all of Mark Carney's suggestions and themes and ideas, they seem to be remarkably aimed at people that are old like me. And, that is key. By the way, that's his key metric. It's his highest voting block is women over the age of 55. That is his highest voting block. They are like 65% in favor of Mark Carney, who you will never hear discuss the idea that house prices need to drop significantly.
Ron, a lot of food for thought. This was a treat, man. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate your time tonight.
Oh, thank you, Wilson. Really appreciate you having me on.
Folks, find him on the socials and find him on the Angry Mortgage podcast for some no-nonsense insights. He is Ron Butler. Now, after some business, are we headed for a new era of a housing shortage in Vancouver? Maybe, probably. Steve Saretsky explains up next.